Hello, my name is Travis Lindsay, and I'm here for the Center for Entrepreneurship and CSUF Startup Incubator at Cal State Fullerton. And with me today, I have Roy and Dave from Lifeline Capital Group. And Roy, you were just telling me that you just graduated, right?
I did. I graduated in May, actually.
Well, congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
Dave, since Roy's already
Yes.
Answered a really tough question, why don't we go to you so that you
Can I
can?
can I leave now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't take attendance here, so you're not going to get docked any points. So Dave, tell us a little bit about this business that you and Roy have created, Lifeline Capital Group.
Yeah, so Lifeline Capital Group was born out of what we saw as a necessity for people who are facing very challenging legal issues. I've been in the criminal defense field for nearly 30 years. And one of the things that I have consistently seen throughout the 30 years that I've been working alongside some fabulous attorneys is that money often makes the difference between somebody's freedom and somebody being incarcerated in many cases for the rest of their life. And sadly, unfortunately, many people have been executed for that same reason. So what we did is we got together and we kind of talked about different ways that we thought that we might be able to assist people in this regard and see how it is that they would be able to fund their criminal defense and all of the secondary costs and expenses that come with it. When people are being prosecuted, they don't think about the fact that they're going to be facing civil lawsuit. They don't think about the fact that they're going to have to pay restitution to the court. They don't think about that oftentimes attorneys charge the clients in stages. It's not just one flat fee, it's in stages, and that they'll have to pay them, that they're going to have to pay for their experts, that they're going to have to pay for investigations. That often this type of legal case creates other legal cases, divorce, child custody, alimony. So there's just this whole pot of expenses that people are just woefully unprepared for and don't have the knowledge necessary to help to navigate the waters. And so Roy and I decided that we have a product and services that we think would be very helpful to these people, particularly those that are facing long decades time in prison. We have ways that we think that we can help them, and that's what we're offering.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard it referred to often as like the process is the punishment, right?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. And
Yeah.
we've identified the process as being about 18 months. And during that 18 months, it is so terribly traumatic for not only the accused, but the accused family, as well as the victims and their families. So the whole process is so terribly emotionally driven, and so a lot of people, their go-to is to stick their head in the sand, pretend it doesn't exist, right, and march through the process. And then at the end, sadly, the results show from that.
Yeah, I mean, can you give our viewers some insight into that? I mean, how much money are we talking about for different kinds of crimes?
Yeah, great question. So when you have the people that we are reaching out to try to help the most are the ones that we've identified as probably needing it the most. And that's going to be somebody who's charged with, your strike offenses, any serious or violent offenses. So you're talking your murder, your manslaughter, your rape, your molestation, all of the ones that carry with it astronomical periods of time. And we want to be able to ensure that if you are accused, that your rights are protected. So the first right that we kind of look at is the right to bail. And unfortunately, in these types of cases, there's typically a choice between two options: no bail or a very high bail. And we're talking around $1 million, 500,000 to $1 million for the offenses that we're dealing with. And the person who is accused, in order to post bail, they're going to have to post or come up with anywhere from around 8 to 10% of that bail out of pocket. That's the fee that goes to the bail bondsman. And then the rest, they're going to have to find some collateral somewhere, all right, so that the bail bondsman's interests are protected. But right there, you're dealing with anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000. That's just to get out. And we'll talk, there's a case out there that talks about the importance of getting out. Those who fight their charges out of custody do drastically better than those who are who are forced to face their charges in custody. So you have to assume that people are cognizant of this and that they're going to do everything that they can to get out. Once you get out, you got to find a lawyer. Now, you know that there's lawyers for everything, right? And so you wouldn't go to a dentist for brain surgery. You're not going to go to a DUI lawyer for a murder case, but you'd be surprised how many do. And people don't know. They have no idea in this situation how to find the skilled lawyers, those that know what they're doing. And those that are the best don't advertise. They're the ones that are only given referrals. And so when you're doing your Googles and finding all of that thing to determine who is the best, that's the wrong approach. And then you go in and they're going to give you these tiered payments, all right, where ultimately it's going to end up being somewhere in the neighborhood for these types of charges around $100,000. Can you find somebody to do it for 20? Yeah. But is this the time that you should be budgeting? Right? Is this the place where you're trying to get a bargain deal? You know, if so, you're going to have a DUI lawyer representing you for a murder case where you face the rest of your life in prison. And so it's these realities that Roy and I have talked about several times about how we want to get information out to people. All right. And then if we can help them, great. That's going to be what we're doing. We are a business. We want to help. We do want to make a small profit, but we also want to do good for people. And we think that we have that ability. So that's just right there. We're talking $100,000 to $200,000 right up front. Doesn't include all the other secondary costs.
Yeah, I mean, I've known people who spent millions of dollars on
That's right.
defenses,
That's right.
and I mean, they were able to pay it, but it was very, very, very tough.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more. Like, what exactly do you guys do for people who find themselves in these situations?
Roy, you want to take it?
Well, sure. Thanks. And that's a great question again, Travis. And what we like to do is we like to give hope that there is an answer to what they're facing. And David didn't really allude to this that much, but a large part of the reason we know all of this is because we both went through it ourselves in very different paths, but we kind of ended up in the same spot at the very end. So that is what really fuels the passion for Lifeline Capital Group. So as we go through this process, the hope that we give is that, one, you have options. And I didn't know these options when I faced what I faced. And this is what we're relaying to these folks is, look, you've got options. You can choose to go this direction, but you also have all these things that you can make yourself available to. A lot of that has to do with what capital you have access to and how you access it and where you spend it, because there's limited amounts of capital, obviously. The majority of the people that we're talking to, the most capital they have access to is in their homes. And that's typically the direction we go. But as we've furthered our business in the last, well, few months, quite honestly, we're able to bring to the table different products that can also add value to what we're presenting as well.
Yeah, and so we've looked at things that we've gotten feedback from different individuals on how best to help. And so one of the things that we've had to adjust is try to figure out ways that we can meet the clients where they are. So for instance, there are plenty of people who are charged, right? We were working with a family who was charged, their son was charged with murder, right? And they got in contact with us and they said, we need to sell our house very fast. We need to get out of the neighborhood. Number one, we need the money for his defense. And number two, we're being threatened. So for that group, we were able to structure and make offers on a sale fast, get them the money they need and get them to safety. Others come to us and they say, hey, well, if I sell my house to you, where am I going to stay? And this is such a chaotic scene for me. I'm going through so much. It's very difficult for me to think about downsizing. We talk about that. Is downsizing the best for you at this situation? Or do you need to stay in your house, all right, access that equity, all right, and then take it until its conclusion. And then based on how you fare at the end, then we can make adjustments there. So we try our best to find those creative solutions for people that are going to help them, all right, at the point that they are. And I think we have those services and products.
One of the things we got out from this as well, Travis, is we just also started a podcast called Flipping the Script. And we talk a lot about this is, how can you change your narrative when this happens to you? And that's what flipping the script is. It's not only, kind of a play on words in regards to property and whatnot, but it's also, you can change your narrative right from the beginning. Don't sit there and do nothing. It's like David said, stick your head in the sand, right? There's things that you can do to better your situation right from the very beginning.
Yeah, and I'll definitely link to that podcast. It's called Flipping the Script. I haven't been able to look at it yet. I think you guys just started it, right? So you got a couple episodes up.
We did.
And it should be easier to find than one of those white shoe law firms, right?
I'm hoping so.
For sure. Yeah. And that's so the way we're structuring it is that we're going to do this 10-part series, and we're going to actually take it through its life cycle, the criminal life cycle, which we're identifying as 18 months. We know, based on my experience in criminal law for all these years, I know the time periods that are the most difficult emotionally for people to handle and things that are surprising. All right. And so what we want to do is at least give people the understanding that when we call them or we reach out to them or they reach out to us and they say, well, we don't know if now's the time to do it. We say, we understand, but we do want you to see where these things are going to happen. Or when people say to them, you know what, I think we're good. As anybody who's ever been part of a criminal case knows, as the time progresses, it's not necessarily that you feel that you're good all the way through. Many, probably a majority of the people at some point question whether or not they have the right representation. So those are things that we want to be able to show people, at least so that they know. If that is a situation that they come across, then they have options, because they don't think they have options because they think that they've paid their money and this is the person that I have, right? Well, when you're facing life in prison, that's not the approach you want to start the trial with, right? That's just not. And so we're going to do this 10 series podcast, taking it through. And then we have guests already lined up that we're going to be doing interviews much like this. We're going to have criminal defense lawyers. We're going to have dependency lawyers. We're going to have divorce lawyers. We're going to have bail bondsmen. We're going to have insurance reps. All of these people giving us their insight on ways in which they may be able to help, whether it's a profit to us or not. All right. We want to be able to give and share information to people so that they're fully knowledgeable, so that if they need us, they had the whole spectrum of options.
Yeah, that's great. I know that the true crime drama is very popular and people look into that. And what was there was a podcast a couple of years ago that was about a trial and trying to get somebody, or trying to get that conviction overturned.
Making a murder was one of the
well, yeah, there was that one. That's true. I wasn't thinking about that one, but yeah. So I think it'll be popular. And so is it going to be a limited series? You said 10 parts to it?
Well, what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to make sure that we get the information, okay? The most important information that we think that our listeners and viewers will want, all right? We want to take it through so that at the very least it gets them thinking about the costs associated with it, and that they can get a better understanding of how the system works in totality and how that applies to their finances. Then once we're complete with that, then we're going to talk to, individuals, right? We reached out to, there was just recently a case where the guy shot the student, and they just recently reduced that from a murder charge after it got hung down to a manslaughter case. So the point of reaching out to that attorney to see whether or not he'd like to come on the show is to show how important it is to have an effective, good lawyer. And unfortunately, effective, good lawyers cost money. But the cost to not do it is drastically more than the cost to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of not doing it could be 25 to life.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
Right. That's exactly right.
And I think, Travis, one thing you have to keep in mind too, or at least the viewers here, is that not everybody who commits some sort of a criminal offense is a bad person, or they don't leave the house in the morning to be a bad person. We've had people that we've spoken with, that older gentlemen driving down the road in late evening, hit somebody who happened to be using a walker and was crossing the road, also old, but he just made a bad decision. And instead of staying and waiting for the police, he left. So he himself was faced with a murder charge at that point, but he didn't wake up in the morning looking to go do that. And then with the families that we're working with as well, it's like, if you have a son or a daughter, and same thing, if they get into an accident, make a bad decision and leave, wouldn't you do anything you could to protect them? And these are the type of things that we're pointing out. So just to plug Flipping the Script, you can find it on YouTube at Lifeline Capital Group as its own channel. But yes, a 10 series, 10 series that we're going to have, a 10 video series, that we're going to have with all the pertinent information, and then all the good gravy information with our special guests and things like that. We'll also be starting to add to that series.
Yeah,
and Travis, I wanted to play off of exactly what Roy said, just as one more story. So I'm working right now and with a client whose son was accused of a rape of a girlfriend. And throughout the case, he kept insisting that the lawyers that he had were handling it. The kid is 19 years old and he was convicted. Then he came to us, all right, to try to find ways to pay for the appellate lawyer, because he has explained that there was millions, I'm over exaggerating, but of mistakes that were made during the trial. And I can tell you from experience, once you've been convicted, it is so much more difficult to win your freedom than had you made the decisions ahead of time. And I will never forget what he said was, I wish I would have called you first.
Yep.
All right. And that's the purpose of what we are trying to convey to people, is at the very least, call us first. Let's give you the options, and then you can make your decisions as you go through that 18-month life cycle.
Yeah, that's usually the advice for anything that's difficult, whether it's starting a business or trying to defend yourself. Is hey, when should I get started with all this? And the answer is always, like yesterday. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and so anybody watching this, I mean, if you are in business, chances are at some point you're going to end up in a courthouse. I mean, that's just the way it works. And I mean, it's not going to be for a murder charge unless, you're part of the Gambino crime family, probably.
You'd be surprised. Tell that to our Orange County judge who's facing murder charges. All right.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of civil cases that come about for business, and getting to know who the lawyers are, and any kind of professional really now will help you in the future, right? I mean, so that's how you're going to get to know those lawyers that you really need when you need them.
That's right. No, that's exactly right. And, for people, if you don't know, I mean, anybody who's just hitting this system for the first time, right? How do you figure out how to hire the best lawyer, right? We know that, I'm going to say 95% of everybody is going to tap on Google and say best criminal defense lawyer near me. Well, here's an industry secret. You pay to be in magazines that are titled best criminal defense lawyer in town. All right. And it looks like a fancy brochure, and it looks very, formal, and said voted. Well, yeah.
Wait a minute.
The business voted.
Dave, are you telling me that there isn't truth in advertising?
This is tough.
100%.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
but people don't know that.
Yeah. So, so I'm a co-founder of an investment fund, and the way that we would get leads would be from referrals, and it would be from other professionals. So would that be the same way? Is that another avenue for finding the right attorney? Talking to your accountant or CPA or somebody else that because they might have a more of an inside track on finding or knowing who those correct lawyers are.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, yes, okay, but again, the lawyer that you're looking for to represent you in these cases are the ones that handle murders and rapes and manslaughters and
Okay.
stuff. So your dentist doesn't typically have that in his Rolodex. We do. All right. So, I mean, that's one area which we say is of great value. All right. I myself have worked with thousands of criminal defense lawyers up and down the state of California. And we've actually, if you go to lifelinecapitalgroup.com in our resource center, we've listed about 20, 25 people that I have worked with. They haven't paid to be listed on this, that I have personally worked with, all right, that handle the most serious offenses that are, you know, just of the top echelon of criminal defense lawyers. And so that's why we say start with us so that we can give you the information so how you can do your own research and figure it out. But here's a great starting point. Same thing with bail. There's a lot of shady bail people out there. All right. We have been doing this for a long period of time. So we've gotten to know the bail people that we trust. And because we send so many people to them, they're actually giving our clients discounts that you wouldn't find anywhere else. So whereas you're going to pay 9-10% over there, our bail bondsmen will charge you 6, 7, 8% around there. And on a $1 million bail, that's real money.
That's substantial. That's what, $20,000-$30,000.
If my math,
Yeah. But me too.
That's exactly right.
If my math is correct, yeah.
That's right.
All right. So if you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, go to Lifeline Capital, and you'll basically be their Sherpas.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
All right, very cool. So I think I have a good idea. I've talked with you guys before, so I should have a better idea of what Lifeline Capital Group is. Is there anything else that we should cover on that before we progress into talking more about like your founder's journey?
I think from my perspective, I think we're pretty good there.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think we're pretty good.
So then moving on to the founder's journey, Roy, I know you went to Cal State Fullerton.
Go Titans.
How did your education there help you in this endeavor?
So David actually started this as a hobby, I think in late 2023. And we had started talking in the middle of this year, 2024, as I came into it just a couple months ago, actually. I brought in a lot of what I've learned my last 2 years at Fullerton in regards to trying to help build the infrastructure of what we're doing. So, for example, right now we're utilizing the incubator at Cal State Fullerton. We're utilizing the students. We're utilizing surveys that I did when I was a student as well. But we're also implementing some of these strategies of how to turn, I guess, leads into market, into dollars for the most part with what we're doing. So I'm using a lot of what I've learned to be able to apply it to the beginning of this journey. I, at the same time, was a returning student, so I had a lot of kind of business experience going into this. Might have been a little outdated. I'm not going to date myself, but it was interesting to learn how business world has changed, as I thought my case was a decade ago, right? And within that 10 years, things like business model canvas started coming out, and just different ways to potentially prospect and to survey and gather information of, are we fulfilling our hypothesis of these people are selling their homes and they need the help scenarios. So we're covering all of that with what we're doing now, which I think is phenomenal because it gives David and myself confidence. It gives us the ability to create a very solid business plan where we can go to people like yourself, Travis, in another 2-3 months with our business plan saying, hey, we need $5 million to be able to put into this fund so that we can draw off it, so that we can keep these people in their homes while they go through these fights. And we're doing all this now. We're even utilizing some of the professors that I work with that will actually still even talk to me. So I asked a lot of questions when I was there.
Oh, you actually have professors that'll still talk with you?
I've got 1 or 2. Of course, we're paying them. We're paying them now, but
fair enough. Yeah, that usually helps with people talking to you a little bit, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the professor's got a ton of experience that I'm trying to draw off of. And, all the professors that we've spoken with so far have been so very open, and it's just a great community to be in as we're building this out. So
Absolutely, absolutely. So Dave, you started this as a hobby?
Yeah. So as Roy told you, both he and I have unfortunately went through the system. I went through the system from two angles. So I like to say that I am fluent both in criminal law as a defendant and criminal law as a lawyer, because I was a criminal defense lawyer for 20 years. And unfortunately, I got in trouble and I lost my license. So as a result of that, I cannot practice law and I cannot give advice to people that are calling up about their cases. And I make that very clear right from the beginning. I cannot talk about the facts of your case, and I'm not here to advise you as to how things are going to go, right? My job is to give you a little bit of an inside perspective, right? And kind of tell you how the sausage is made so that you can make your decisions accordingly. So yeah, so what started out as a hobby, all right, and saying, hey, what I'll do is I'll put this up, I'll give people information because I have it, and I know it's valuable and nobody else does it, all right. Well, then we started getting traction, and people were asking for services that at that stage I wasn't able to deliver just simply because I was doing other things. And so I couldn't dedicate all of my time to it. And so that's why I approached Roy, and Roy and I have such a great chemistry in the sense of he comes from the world of finance, I come from the world of law. And so it's a perfect melding together of trying to develop this product, which is finance for criminal law, right? And so we together have put our heads, and we both believe in the protection of constitutional rights. We both believe in fairness and making sure that everybody has the same fighting chance, right? And so we also recognize that there are people who are not hitting their tapped potential, and as a result are suffering greatly for it. So together we said, hey, why don't we really put our resources together and go out there and get people to at least understand that we exist, because there's nobody out there, not a single person, that has this type of resource and company. It's the barrier to entry is too great, right? It's just too difficult to enter this because you don't have the knowledge that collectively Roy and I have. And so because of it, we can provide a service. So yes, what started as a hobby quickly became recognizable as a strong business model that we can provide an outstanding service to people that is crucially helpful to them.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I mean, maybe somebody watching this, if you're thinking, well, if they're being charged and they're being brought to trial, that means that they're guilty. And I think the conviction rate in America, I forget for what kinds of crimes, but I think it's like 95%.
95%. That's exactly right. 95%. And 95% of the cases settle ahead of time. But the matter is, how are they going to settle? Right? I mean, so only about 5% of all cases go to trial. And that's because the weight of the government is so heavy. The sentencing schemes that are out there, there are too many mandatory minimums. If you go to assert your innocence and you lose, you will get a maximum of life in prison. I'm now offering you 30 years to terminate it. Well, shit, how do you, that's a tough call, right? That's a tough call. And you want to make sure that you have the lawyer who has presented everything in a manner that gives you the best chance at that.
Yeah, I mean, and it is it is the cornerstone of the American legal system.
That's right.
Your right to self-defense, it's to protect your civil liberties, but it's kind of Kafkaesque in a way also, because you guys are right. I mean, it's obscured how you're supposed to actually do that, and if you don't know even where to start, how are you going to get the right defense? So,
and I like the Kafka reference with a metamorphosis as the thing. As the case progresses, it does change.
Oh yeah,
it dramatically changes your perspective.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Kafka story where the guy is at the door and there's a doorman there, and he just waits and waits and waits for his whole life, and then as he's about ready to die, he asks the doorman if he can go through, and the doorman says, "You could have always gone through," and he just never did because he didn't know he could. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting system. It can, and I don't know. Dave, since you were the lawyer, how good at protecting people's civil liberties do you think the system really is?
Well, It depends on the lawyer, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
So I will say, I'm going to give a shout out to all my public defender friends. Okay, public defenders get a very bad rap, right? And there's some truth to it. What I mean by this is public defenders have way too many cases than they should, all right, because just that's the way the system is designed. And then public defenders have to go into court every single day, all right, so they're in there 6 out of the 8 hours that they're working in court, and then they spend the rest of the time in their office and at home and on weekends working up the cases. So, but some of the best lawyers that I know come from the public defender's office, all right, so I defend them. With that said, you are assigned a public defender. You don't get to pick your public defender. That's your first thing. The second thing is that you don't get the public defender until charges have been filed. Well, if you're really smart, you're hiring a lawyer before the charges have been filed, all right, to not only do your investigation, all right, but to reach out to the prosecutor and start your negotiations ahead of time. Right? That's the real person. The best defense is to have no defense at all when you go to trial because you don't have a case that's pending. So that's where you're going to get your private lawyers. Now, on the private side, what people don't realize is private lawyers often are lawyers that couldn't get into the public defender's office. Fact. Total truth. All right. So they were sitting there trying to get in, but the public defender's office is a very, very competitive office to get into. So they couldn't do that. Now they're on their own, and their bread and butter, their livelihood is dependent on consistently bringing in those $100,000 cases. And so rather than working up cases, they're out there doing marketing and promising the world and delivering nothing. So, that's the hard reality. And you don't know. You go in and you sit and you give your case, and the guy pulls up his sleeve and says, we're going to get busy and we're going to work and we're going to do all that stuff. He collects his money, and then you can't get a hold of him or her. And that is a terribly helpless feeling.
Yep.
Right? You've given what all you can give, and now the son of a bitch is gone. Right? So I can't emphasize, that's what we're trying to help people understand, that difficulty and that reality and ways to avoid it.
Gotcha. Yeah. It sounds like you're almost just like being thrown into the deep end of the Pacific Ocean and expecting to swim to shore.
That's right.
So, okay.
So just to address that real quick, Travis, for me, that's exactly what it was, right? I had never been in trouble before my case. It was a white collar case. So I had to knock on the door in the morning. Next thing I know, I'm getting appointed an attorney as well. I got out and after my arraignment, and I started calling for retainers everywhere. It was up from $30,000 to the next week to $2 million for the whole case scenario. And I was just like, what do I do? So I ended up with a court-appointed attorney. God bless his soul. He tried his hardest and he said all the right things, I thought. But it was just no match against the government. And they sat there with files stacks high, 8-inch books all across their table. When we sat in front of a jury trial, I took it all the way to the jury trial. And along the way, they gave me offers. And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to spend that long inside. And I was just, I had my head in the sand all the time. When David presented this idea to me, I'm like, that was me specifically. I was that guy. And then at the end of the whole scenario, I think the judicial system worked for me because I got a pretty light sentence. It was well below what they were offering me. And it wasn't so much that the jury gave me they didn't give me my sentencing. The judge gave me my sentencing. The judge kind of saw right through what was going on the prosecution side, as well as what my attorney was arguing. And I got lucky. He sentenced me to a lot lighter than what the offers even were halfway through my case. So in my case, I would like to say the judicial system in many ways did work, although as fascinated as I am and what I gone through, at this point now I'm a studying pre-law student, hopefully, right? So I'm also now going that direction for a second career. So I love it. I think it's there for people. You just got to know how to use it.
That's cool. I did not know that about you. So you're studying to become a lawyer?
I am actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a little bit of a detour back to Lifeline Capital Group. And I know it's only a couple of months old. Dave, I know you've been working on it for longer than that. What are some of the key lessons that you guys have learned in these early stages?
Well, I can say with the beginning and then where we are, right now. So one of the challenges that we have with this, group of people is that number one, we are a business that doesn't exist anywhere else. We're the only ones that are doing this the way we are doing this. And so when the clients contact us, it's much easier. They already know what they're looking for, and we're able to talk to them and offer them services, and it's fantastic. If we are reaching out to them, it can be challenging. It can be challenging because they don't know exactly who we are. They haven't understood our promise to them to treat them fairly and with dignity, and that we're trying to create a fairness, situation to level the playing field. They don't know that. And unfortunately, Roy and I are contacting them at their most difficult period in their life, whether it's the mother whose son is facing life in prison or it's the guy who was just arrested himself. So one of the largest challenges we have is, number one, being able to reach them. And then when they get on the phone, for them to understand that we're coming from a place of sincerity. Yes, we are a business. Yes, we expect to make a profit, but we are coming with sincerity that we truly believe that what we have will benefit them to the highest extent. And, several times we are treated much like we probably treat other phone calls, right?
Random callers.
Lose my number.
Right.
And we're trying to say, well, wait, hear us out. And they're unwilling. So that's a challenge. Roy and I have, challenges. When we came together, I told you we work perfectly in this arena, and we do. But we do see things differently, which is a good. All right, that's exactly the way it's supposed to do. So working in a partnership, always has to be a challenge in the sense of communication and compromise and working together. Neither one of us are afraid to change our minds if shown. All right, but we are both pretty stubborn, and we both, believe that we are, when we say something, we have strong opinions. So that will be a challenge for any partners, I think, going into it. I think they're great lessons.
With that, I'm going up against a very well-trained, attorney. So
Yeah,
it's practice for him. He's going to be one.
Exactly. It is. It's practice for me. But, as any small business too, Travis, I think a very large part of our heavy woes are resources. Our time, there's two of us. We've got one third person he's probably working 80 hours a week. We're paying him 40 hours a week. And then we're probably working 60 hours a week, and it's just creating that once that door opens of revenue. And we were just going over our pipeline this morning, actually. We've got a good pipeline that's building, but it's also an 18-month sales cycle potentially, which is a lot longer than most small businesses that I've been in before. So there needs to be some staying power in there. So every day we're A/B testing. We're kind of tweaking things to try to get to these people faster. We're tweaking our message to get these people to respond a little bit quicker. But at the same time, we don't want to be pushy because, like David said, man, these people are just, I know for my situation, if somebody would have called me offering this at the peak level of when I was going through this, I would have said what most of these people say to us in the beginning. So all we can do is try to figure out, how do we stay in front of these people consistently? And how do we not spend thousands of dollars on each individual lead that we get to share our message with them so that they know? And we feel that doing stuff like we're doing today, thank you for this, by the way.
Thank you.
Public relations, which was brought up a while ago, just things like this are phenomenal for us. Let us get the message out to other people who can also get the message out for us.
And Travis, along those lines too, if I might just add, I mean, one of the things that we are very much keen on and trying to accomplish by doing things like this too is not only to get our message to the people that we're serving in that aspect, but other people who might be interested in our mission and believe in what we're doing, so that they will invest in us and give us the money necessary to be able to offer better and bigger services to people. So like we said, we've done financial models. We're working with one of the professors there who's developing the financial models to make sure that we can put something together that makes sense both to the client, all right, to us, all right, and to any investors, so that everybody says, wow, this actually works for all of us. Allows them to stay in their house if they want to, allow them to relocate if they want to, allows them to tap other assets if they need to. And so we're putting together all of these things, but we're fearful because when we have one client that we're working on, right, all of our resources are going there. And these are expensive, propositions that we have to make to these people. We're talking, equity in home and getting them large sums of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we need that funding so that we can better serve and branch our services out to most. And so that's also a challenge that we're trying to work through.
And we haven't even really talked about what happens once they say yes, right? Yeah. Now we've got to go buy their home.
That's right. And so those are the things that we've been doing, and it's money. And it's money.
It's money, it's time, it's a lot of work. But you guys are making progress, right?
For sure.
Absolutely. Every day. Every day is an amazing day.
Yeah. So I think this is a good point to look forward a little bit. Where do you guys see Lifeline Capital Group in a couple of years, 5 years?
Well, so right now we are focused exclusively in California, and we're focused on state criminal cases.
Yep.
There's an entire industry in the federal system, all right, where the sentences can be astronomical, and minimum mandatory sentences are fluent. They're there, and they squeeze people, and it's difficult. So right now we're dealing with our California base. Then we will expand to our federal base. And then we will learn the lessons that we have here in California and where we are. And then we will move over to Arizona and then Nevada. And it is our hope that throughout the next 5 years, we are able to scale our business throughout the United States and have representatives in all different geographical areas. So that's our hope.
Not only that, but we also will be infusing different products, which we are already looking at, potentially insurance products and things along those lines that we can tap into as an asset that people just don't think about. Maybe even, heck, maybe expensive cars. We know a couple of professors that like cars. You know who I'm talking about.
I do. Cars, boats, second properties, third properties,
businesses.
Businesses, absolutely. Yep.
Fine art.
Fine art.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Wine collections as well, probably.
That may not get too far from us, but
we'll
take them in. I don't know if they'll go back out. But
yeah, that might be a bad business decision. You buy the fine wine, and then it just disappeared. I don't know what happened with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Final question from me. So you guys starting this out, Capital Lifeline Group, flipping the script, the podcast, and you got a lot of stuff going on. You're in the deep of it. 60+ hours a week is probably sometimes closer to 100 hours a week. What advice do you guys have for new entrepreneurs, whether they're students or they're mid-career? What advice can you give them?
Mine is patience and communication. All right. Yeah. So mine is, it's a difficult road to start a business, particularly one that nobody else is doing, because doubt will creep in, several times. And then all of a sudden you get, a case and a client that, is so appreciative, and then it feels so great. And then we move over. So, it is making sure that you come up with a plan. All right. You follow the plan. All right. And then you tweak it along the way as you go. Communication is just that. It's, when two people are working together, it is it's a intense, it's a work relationship. Yeah. Yep. And so you have to like I said, you have to do that. And that's something that Roy and I said right from the beginning. We both have thick skins. We know that we can get heated, but at the end of the day, what we're getting heated over is the same things that we're both trying to accomplish. And we see things at times differently, which is exactly what you want. And so I didn't want to do it as a hobby. I wanted to take it to the next level. And Roy has all the attributes to do that. And so by communicating, it makes it much more efficient and effective.
Yeah, and I would agree with that 100%. I don't think I could have said it any better. The patience, the communication is absolutely necessary, especially if you're working with a partner. Have a goal in mind. I mean, thing with me and David, and like David had alluded to, I mean, we had the gloves on this morning, right? We were like duking stuff out this morning, but we all have that same end goal in mind. So we know where we want to get. It's just a matter of molding what we're doing to get there. If you don't have a partner that you don't have to worry about, then it's a lot of patience. Don't be afraid to think outside the box and to try different things, but get some results before you start trying all sorts of crazy stuff, right? And I think that's what we're really good at doing as a team right now is we've been able to test all sorts of different markets. And it's kind of funny because as I mentioned earlier, we're utilizing some of the students in the incubator. And, you know, they've come up to us in the beginning and they're like, well, we want to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, ah, well, we tried that, and we tried that, and we tried that, and we tried that, and we tried that. How about thinking about this, you know? And so it's been kind of neat that it doesn't seem so much like work when you're having fun like that and trying new things along the way. And that's the last thing you want to do as an entrepreneur is buy your work, right? So make sure that you just love what you do and you have the same goal in mind and just stay open to communicate and patient.
I think it was Ben Franklin that said, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work.
Yep.
Right. We're on 9,999.
Ways closer.
Yeah, on that note, I cannot top Ben Franklin. I know that. I know my limitations. So I think we'll end it there. Roy, Dave, thank you both very much. I'll link to Lifeline Capital Group in the notes and flipping the script as well. And is there anything else, guys?
That's it. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate you.
Come watch our podcast, Flipping the Script, at Lifeline Capital Group YouTube channel, and go view our website, lifelinecapitalgroup.com. If you have any comments for us, please let us know. We're trying to better ourselves every day, and we're not afraid to, you know, listen to the criticism as well as, you know, get a pat on the back every once in a while.
For sure. For sure.
All right. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Travis. Appreciate it.